Hello, everyone. We have Ellen Storm here, who is a fruit-based doctor and the host of the upcoming Welsh Fruit Festival. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
being here. We're just
Thank
gonna
you,
have a
everyone.
little back and forth Q&A interview style. So yeah, before we get into it, I just want to say that we met at the UK Fruit Festival.
Yeah.
That was an incredible, fun experience, and it was cool to meet you there. So it's amazing to finally get some time to be able to just get to hear your story and how you came onto this lifestyle. So why don't we start there? How did you stumble upon fruit-based living and this lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was an overnight transition for
Mhm,
me, not at all. Um, I went vegetarian when I was 8 years old.
mhm.
I picked up a leaflet in a health food shop where I used to go with my mum to buy peanut butter. So I think that was our definition of whole food then was brown bread and peanut butter mostly. And I think it was a picture of a cow in a cage. I can't quite remember, but anyway, something like that. So yeah, so I picked that up, decided to go vegetarian overnight. Announced I was going vegetarian overnight. My mum's like said to me, "There's no way you're ever gonna like manage to do that. That's impossible. It's not gonna happen." And I was like, "You just watch me." And I
Mm.
never ever looked back. So I never ate red meat or white meat ever again. But she brokered a deal with me. Um, I'll show my age now. I was eight. Well, I must have early 80s. Um, and she said, I don't know what I'm going to feed you. So she said, well, if you carry on eating fish, the whole family will go vegetarian. She says, I'm not cooking two dinners. I'm only going to cook one thing.
Mhm.
Um, so we'll all go vegetarian, but we'll still eat fish. And if you do
Vegetarian with
that, then
fish.
we'll do that. Vegetarian with fish. And in those days, I didn't know any better. That was what vegetarian meant. Like I called myself vegetarian, but
Mhm.
I did still eat fish sometimes. Um, and that was how it was for years. I mean, I did that then for, I don't know, into my 20s, sometime, early 20s or something. Um, and then I went vegan the first time because
Mhm.
I went vegan, then I wasn't vegan, then I was vegan again. Um, so the first time I went vegan, I think it was about 2004. I was studying at a place called the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine in North London, in
Okay.
Bloomsbury. I was studying for a master's in something called public health, which is basically population health, where we look at how we can kind of maybe, I don't know, change the environment in ways that help people to live healthier lives. Um, it includes things like kind of health promotion, health prevention stuff. So I was studying all that, and I did a unit in called diet related chronic disease. So I did this study unit, and also at about the same time, my mum had a heart attack,
Okay.
and she was only
Mm.
52, and it was a bit of a shock. Got the phone call, went down to the hospital, whatever. I mean, she was fine. She is fine.
Mhm.
She's still fine. She's never had another one. Um,
Awesome.
but after that, um, yeah, I remember going into a Waterstones in Bloomsbury. There's like one on the corner of the road where the place I was studying, like picking up this book called something to do with vegan diet and chronic disease,
Okay.
something like that.
Oh,
And
you just sort of
first of
did it
a
just sort
very
of strike your
large
attention?
library that you can see behind me. No, if it's there, even be there.
Mm.
Anyway, never mind. Um, so uh, I read I read that and I went vegan and I didn't quite manage to persuade my mum to go vegan, but she's kind of like mostly or a lot of the time vegan and like then also the other book that came out around that time was the China Study,
Ah,
T.
right.
Colin
Okay.
Campbell, and that one I did read. Um, and not only did I read that one, I don't know if I've got yeah, there it is. Look, I've got it there. Still got the same one, and it's absolutely covered in annotations. Like I just
Nice.
wrote all over it. Uh,
Nice.
So that was a really important like text for me and turning point for me, I think, when I read that. Uh, Probably I read the two books around the same time. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, also I remember the first one that I picked up in Waterstones. It talked about something called the Lifestyle Heart Trial, and the
Okay, what's
Lifestyle Heart
that?
Trial was Dean Ornish. Hmm?
Yeah, what's that? What's that?
You heard of it? So it was done in 1990 by Dean Ornish et al. And they put people on a less than 10% fat diet who were going through, who had angina and had coronary artery disease. And they did angiograms, like where they look at the arteries, take pictures and stuff. So they did angiograms before and after, and they put them on the low fat diet. They also did some other things like meditation and different lifestyle interventions as well. So
Mm.
it wasn't only that, which kind of made it a bit more difficult to interpret. But they put them on that diet and they showed angiographic regression of their coronary artery disease. So their symptoms got better, but they also got pictures that said that the amount of narrowing of the arteries reduced, like the arteries opened up as a result. And I think those people achieved about 6% fat in their total. So the total fat in their diet was about 6% at that point in time. Now, if you bear in mind that our government recommends 35% total fat,
Yeah,
11%
quite high.
saturated fat, and this
Mm.
was 6% total fat. And what the government recommends is roughly what, as a society, we average. Yeah, we average about 35. So really, the government's just reflecting back on us what we're already doing. It's that way
Mhm.
around, um, rather than the fact that we're all doing what we're told. It's just that the government guidelines tend to be fairly conservative and don't try and change people too much because it upsets all the food industry people. Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
so that's the way that works. And um, so yeah, I don't remember a particular moment when I decided to go vegan, but I sort of remember the context and the things that were happening around that time, I suppose. And those were the things. So it was my mum's heart attack, doing my diet related chronic disease study
Mhm.
unit, reading these books. Um, and I think just also really, I probably would have gone vegan when I was 8 if I'd had anybody around me who, like, if I even knew what the word was or what it
Yeah.
meant. But at that time where I was, like, vegetarian was really like way out there, like, and wacky. Do you know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
like, the only vegan, I don't think I maybe knew one when I was growing up. And I do remember my mum saying something to me about how you get like deficient and nutrient deficiencies and you're really ill. And like, that's why we had to have fish as well, just like, that sort of thing. So there was, you get those messages and it takes a while to unpick them. Yeah, so I did that. I did it for a couple of years the first time, and then uh, a new relationship, new city, different things happened, and I just kind of let it go. And I think I also probably at that point didn't entirely know what I was doing. Like it was all still quite an experiment for me, and um, yeah, so there's been a kind of took me a long time to learn how to, feed myself properly
Mm.
and what I liked and how I was going to do it. And, everyone has to go through that process. And back then, which isn't that long ago, but it's quite a long time ago, in relatively speaking, there just wasn't any like processed vegan food. There wasn't the whole range of like meat substitutes and dairy
Mm.
substitutes, and
It was mainly whole food.
you couldn't buy a microwave vegan meal in the supermarket. So at that point there wasn't any of that. It was all I was making, like, it was old school vegan lentil soup and like wholemeal bread and things like that. And then moving forward a couple of years, 2006, I went to San Francisco.
Mm.
I'm showing you all my books now. I like showing people my
Mhm.
books. So I went to San Francisco. I was in a bookshop in a place called Sonoma Valley, which is outside in California. And I found this book, which is the Vegan World Fusion Cuisine from
Mhm.
the Blossoming Lotus. Oh, I love this book. I just fell in love with this book. It's beautiful. It's got lovely pictures. I don't think, and it talks about living food, and I don't think I had a clue what on earth it was.
So
I
so
didn't
you're
make anything out of it. I just looked at the pictures and this idea of this beautiful and kind of our food being related. Sorry, I'll stop in a second, but just spiritually related, like what we eat as some kind of spiritual discipline or process as well. Like
Mhm.
that really resonated for me. Yeah, go on. You were going to ask a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so your first introduction into raw food living was from reading this book,
Yeah,
like
I think
Fruitbased
that
Lifestyle.
that's the earliest thing that I remember was picking that book up in the bookshop, and it was that reference to living food. And I think that perhaps also, but this is not 100% raw book, and maybe where it doesn't have that clearer message in the sense that there's a branch of raw which is lots of greens,
Hmm.
lots of sprouts, things like that, which are great. I like eating lots of greens and sprouts, but they don't really have any calories in them. And
Hmm.
so you've got to get your calories from somewhere. And you either get them from one or of two places. Then it doesn't matter. I mean, unless you're a gorilla, you're literally sitting in the forest munching leaves all day, right? Which most of us aren't and don't really want to be in the modern world. So you can do one of two things: you can eat fruit or you can eat cooked food, and those are your only two options from there, right, to get your calories up. um
Or
or
someone
I
is
mean,
doing like lots of
you can
nuts,
do a mixture of those two things. Sorry, say again.
or someone's doing like lots of nuts, like the high fat sort of raw sort of. Even though that's not
Yeah,
ideal, we know that that's not
yeah,
ideal. Yeah.
true.
Mm.
Okay, so what I should probably have said is if you want to keep your fat level low, then you
100%.
only have two ways to go. You can eat low fat cooked or you can eat fruit.
Mm.
Yeah. So the third way is you can eat loads of fats, whether raw or cooked, whatever. You can eat a lot of fat and you can get very ill doing that. And that
Yeah.
is what a lot of people from the raw community have kind of discovered, I think, during the historical evolution of raw, is that people found that they were, when they were really, really eating a lot of fat and getting their calories from nuts and seeds and avocados and things like that, then they actually, their health really suffered. So there's much more awareness. We have a lot more awareness. We're lucky now coming in as like the next generation. We've
Mm.
got amazing teachers who are explaining to us why that isn't necessarily a great thing to do. And it's not that you can't have a few nuts and seeds, but you
Mm.
know that we do need to kind of keep a cap on that. Um,
So
but yeah,
when
so
did
this
you discover, sorry, when did you discover the low fat raw food or low fat fruit based message? Was that something that like you just stumbled across as well, or how did
it's
you get
funny
into that?
because when I went to my first fruit festival in 2019, or I think it was 2019, or maybe it was the next year we had this conversation. Anyway, I had a conversation with Doug Graham,
Mm.
and I remember him distinctly saying to me, because being a medical doctor at this event, like people look at me sometimes a little bit suspiciously, like what are you doing here?
What's
You
going
know,
on?
they're like, he did that. He sort of looked at me a little bit like, okay, do you think I'm completely mad and you must think I'm totally nuts? I was a bit like, I'm here, aren't I? Obviously don't think so. Obviously don't think that. But anyway, um, but I do remember saying to him, no, yeah, no, because it's obvious. Like I put two and two together somewhere in the process of my reading and my explorations and trying out different things. Like I tried out all the low fat cooked
Mm.
sort of stuff. So like after the Lifestyle Hearts trial, there were then these papers by Caldwell B. Esselstyn, who's the cardiologist in he's the cardiologist behind this cookbook, which is Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease.
Amazing.
Um, and that is very much your low fat cooked food. Like it has got some raw food in it, but your majority of calories is coming from your whole grains and your legumes and things like that. So I tried it, but I didn't like it very much. I think that was the thing. So it was like a process of experimentation.
Mm.
I did try doing these things, and there are a few things that I kind of have held on to and I maybe like occasionally, but
Mm.
mostly I just didn't really like it. I found it a bit bland and hard work. because you can't buy it in the shops. You would make it all for yourself as well. So
Mm,
I was,
mhm.
I got a bit fed up of sort of slaving over a hot stove, making things that in the end I just didn't really enjoy that much. I was just like, well, what's this all about? And then on the other hand, I was looking at the raw food,
Mhm.
but a lot of the raw food cookbooks that I picked up along the way, I started to acquire a bit of a collection and I was trying out all the things. And they always start off with the cheesecake and the like,
Yeah. High fat. A lot of
nut-based pies and things like that. And so very, very high fat, gourmet raw stuff. And that also because I was just had this emerging awareness that eating too
mm,
much fat wasn't very good for me. Um, I wanted to do low fat, but I wanted the benefits of raw, but I didn't. So it was kind of like putting those two things together for me. So there's low fat cooked on one side, there's gourmet raw on the other. Well, hang on a minute, never the twain shall meet. There needs to be something in the middle. And somewhere along the line, I actually remember putting into Google low fat raw, and I
mhm.
think I'm not sure because my memory on this is a bit hazy, but I think I might have come across 80-10-10 and Doug Graham and the Fruit Festival at that point.
Nice.
So I think it was sort of just I was generally searching
Mhm.
for something out there that kind of resonated with, I suppose, where I was getting to in my own mind, if that makes sense. And then yeah, I found the Fruit Festival and I found 80-10-10
Mhm.
and started coming to the fruit festivals. I think I've been to 7 now,
Amazing. Uh,
including Woodstock in Florida. So yeah,
Amazing.
yeah, does that answer your question?
It does, yeah,
Long-winded
it
answer.
does. I was gonna, that actually leads on to my next question. So, what are some of the benefits you've experienced, from going from vegan and then going from, well, vegetarian to then like
Mm.
sort of more like whole food, sort of plant-based, and then going to more like a low-fat, raw fruit-based lifestyle?
It's funny, really, because when I first went vegan,
Hmm.
um, and that, like I said, there wasn't any like vegan junk food. It was really hard to get. You actually had to go out looking and go to the special health food shops and find the vegan chocolate. You just couldn't buy it in Tesco's like you can now. And where I working in like the NHS, I was I mean, it's terrible, right? But the nurses' stations, you go onto the wards and they'd be covered in crisps and biscuits and chocolate, like they'd just be covered in them. And when I went vegan the first time, that removed all of those things from my diet instantly because none of them were vegan.
Nice.
And
Mm.
it was just like, right, well, I don't eat that anymore. So, like, I just stopped. So I think that the decision to go vegan was partly a health decision about trying to cut out the junk food, which at that time I saw as being connected always to animal products. But then, obviously, over the next sort of 10-15 years, we've just seen more and more and more of the vegan junk coming in, and I felt like I've been backing away from it. So it's almost like you can see there's like the vegan world things coming. Oh, we've got vegan croissants and we've got vegan pies and we've got vegan this and vegan, isn't it amazing? We can now have vegan fish and chips. And
Mm.
I'm like, no, this is not amazing. I don't want this in my life. I'm trying to get away from it. And as I've done that, I've kind of backed in a way
Mm.
more into raw. Um,
Mm.
as a sort of pushback almost from that. And then yeah, I so but I think the transition from cooked vegan to raw, I mean, that to me is like night and day. It really is. And in a way that I never experienced when I went from vegetarian to vegan. When I went from vegetarian to cooked vegan,
Mhm.
well, I think I probably thought, yeah, I'm eating quite more healthy and I'm eating lots of veg and lentils and brown rice and things like that, but I don't remember that absolute light bulb kind of sense of coming alive
Mm.
that you get when you go raw completely and you just get all that cooked food out of your system and all of the addictive crap out of your system, and you just like it is completely like walking from night into day,
Mm.
the energy and the mental clarity, um, until you've experienced it. you can't understand it. And then when you've experienced it, it is utterly life changing. It really is. And I've never seen, I've seen people go off raw and go back into cooked food.
Mm.
But if you talk to them, you never go back to being the person that you were before. Like you can't unlearn what you learn when you do
No.
that. It's always with you. You're always going to have that niggling voice in the back of your head going, you know,
There's a higher
you
potential.
know
Yeah.
what is the situation and you're not doing it and it's like this and it's like you have this constant, and I mean it has definitely not been a straightforward transition. Like even now I would say I'm maybe 90-95% raw but not 100. Like I odd things here and there and little bits and pieces creeping, but mostly. But over the years of, like, I would say, I think it's about 11,
Mhm.
12 maybe years, I've gone backwards and forwards a lot of times.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
even knowing that you have this amazing transformative experience and it doesn't necessarily stop the world kind of crashing in on you and
Yeah.
whatever happens,
Yeah.
and you end up back where you started, you have to go through the whole thing again. And but I actually think that's really valuable learning. I think people,
Mhm.
most of us, need to go around that cycle a few times because we're not good at remembering and we easily forget and we push it down to the back of our psyche when we're just out trying to have a good time and eat what our friends are eating and going out to the restaurants and whatever, but it's always there. Because
Mhm.
once you've done it you can't get rid of it. It's always there going, it's a positive thing in the sense as well that if you do get ill or you run into trouble, you've got, well, actually, hang on a minute, I can
You
get
know
that
how
out
to
of my back
go.
pocket.
Yeah.
I've
You
got it
can.
there, but it's better not to get ill in the first place. So,
It's like, yeah, it's
so
like a
does that
tool
make
you
sense?
it's like a tool you can use, whenever you need to go that extra mile in regards to your health. So yes, I 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
not
prevention is
easy.
always better, but sometimes, we don't learn, do we? But I
Mm,
think we need to learn, and we learn by repetition, by going around that cycle a few times and observing our own body and seeing what happens. And then, oh, one of the things for me has been that what I would describe when I'm eating raw, what I feel is fine. I feel fine. Once I
okay.
get onto a level, it's like, okay, I haven't got any pain, I haven't got any aches and pains, I haven't got any symptoms really. Like, I'm like a child, that just takes health completely for granted because you don't
Yeah.
think about it when you're a child, do you? You're just running around and playing, and your body works and it does all the things that you just automatically take for granted. And I get a bit like that. Like, okay, well, we have really short memory. And you forget how awful you felt, like even 2 weeks ago,
Mm,
and you start going, oh, I just feel fine. And then, because, our brains are tricky, aren't they? And they go, it's all right. I could just have a little bite of this piece of toast,
mm,
or I can just have a little bit of this pasta, or I can just have this. And I'll be, and then it's like that erosion, like that slippery slide. And then you don't start feeling awful straight away. Maybe it's 2 weeks before you start feeling really awful again. And then you're going, oh God,
yeah, you kind of
why
miss
have I
it.
done this
Yeah.
again? Now
Mm,
I feel awful again. And I was feeling okay, and now I feel awful. But before that, I was feeling really awful as well. And it takes time for us to really kind of put those pieces of the jigsaw together. Um, yeah. And then eventually, you do it less and less, I think, over time. But,
yeah,
I
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
That is
cool.
that's been my experience with it. I like 4 years ago, I just started with one fully raw day, and then the next year, or one fully raw day per week, and then the year after that, I did two fully raw days, and then the year after that, I did 3 days of just fruits and greens, whether cooked or raw, more like Arnold
Mm.
Barrett style, and then every year I've just increased that number until eventually I'm gonna get 365 days in a row. And I find that to be an easier transition for me personally.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have been messaging me saying that, whoa, I didn't know you could transition that way. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna give that a go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very
So
systematic. I love your you know I love how organized you are about it. I think for me, I'm afraid I've been much, much more chaotic than that. Um, but then maybe because being a mum, I've got kids, I work a
Hmm.
shift rota at work, I work nights, like I have no
It's all
kind of
over.
regularity in my timetable at all. So
Mm,
I'm a little bit all over the place. Just kind of feel like I'm just making it up as I go along, really, and
mm.
trying to do the best that I can. So,
Yeah,
and it's always been a bit like that. Yeah,
you
but
do
I
have
think
to
it is,
tell us.
you know, say again.
I was gonna say you do have to tell us, what a typical day looks like in your life in terms of what you eat.
I just don't have one actually. So it's not a question
So
I
like
can
breakfast,
answer
lunch, and
because
dinner. Mm.
um
Or just the typical foods you would eat in a given day.
well, I can tell you the things that I like.
Yeah.
Well, breakfast,
Mm,
absolute game changer for me was Rosalind Graham's carob smoothie bowl.
mhm,
Like sometimes I'll have a green smoothie or I'll just have like some chopped fruit like apples and raisins and stuff like that,
mhm,
figs, pears. I like those sorts of things in the morning.
mm,
Um, but yeah, so the carob smoothie is just carob and bananas blended with water and poured on top of a big pile of fruit. So things like apples, pears. I tend to put apples, pears, figs, raisins, blueberries, that kind of combination.
mhm,
And then dried mulberries, I like to put those on the top. And that's like a completely fat-free way of getting loads of calories in early. One of the problems for me, which went on for a long time actually before this, um, suggestion kind of came into my life because I do like when I'm working day shifts, I have to go to work, start at 8:30. We have our handover meeting, we go and do the ward round, and then the ward round will usually go on until lunchtime. And then you're supposed to have your lunch, which most people kind of expect it to be like a sandwich and a packet of crisps. So it's something, those sorts of foods that we normally eat that are very calorie dense and you can eat very fast, preferably in a meeting. So the idea that you can sit down and spend half an hour or an hour munching your way through some huge great bowl of something is,
mm.
just total
Yeah, it's gonna
anathema
be
to
hard. Yeah.
that, environment. But I was getting really wobbly somewhere. I don't really like eating that early, and I'm not usually hungry until about 10 o'clock. And I'd get to 10 o'clock, and so I might have like just a chopped apple and a cup of herbal tea or something in the morning. That's my first thing. At the moment, that's my first thing is a cup of, I have turmeric tea and I have a chopped apple. That's like the first, like a sort of mini breakfast, if you
Hmm.
like.
Hmm.
And then I get hungry about 10 or 11ish, and I might have something bigger. But if I'm at work, I can't do that. And then I was getting quite wobbly, and I would keep a little nut bar or something in my pocket. And I'd have to like say I have to go to the toilet in the middle of the ward round so I could go and eat my nut bar and like secret because you're not allowed to eat food on the wards. That's the thing, like that. Certainly since COVID, that we're not allowed to have food on the wards anymore. You're not even allowed to bring your drinks bottles or whatever. Maybe it's relaxed a bit again now, but certainly was for a while. So getting something that has 500 or 600 calories into me before I start work. Like, and or watermelon is the other one that like lots of people say start the day with watermelon. Well, I just cannot eat enough watermelon to get the number of calories that I need to power me through till lunchtime because, well, partly because watermelon gives me really bad heartburn,
Hmm.
watermelon and pineapple if I eat too much of it. So there's that issue as well. But also, um, and that is probably because over my lifetime I have overdosed on too much Nurofen because I used to get really bad periods.
Hmm.
So um,
So you're mainly just
did
doing the
take a lot of that.
smoothies.
It's probably got a bit
Mainly.
of gastric irritation or like irritation there. But anyway, still healing that one. Anyway, so I can't do that with so I tried that advice to eat melon and that didn't work at all. Like because I could probably only manage about 100 calories of melon before I can't eat anymore and I have to, and it's just that it's getting that density in. So yeah, I think 600 calories like straight off on days when I'm working at the very least anyway. um that's really helpful. Sometimes I'll take a big bot. I've got a big smoothie bottle that I take to work. So like I'll fill that up with my favorite green smoothie, which I had one yesterday, which was spinach, parsley, bananas, mango, and passion fruit.
Awesome.
Um,
Mm.
yeah. And then other things I like putting, I've got a big bowl um that I put with a lid. I'm just talking about things I take to work actually, but this is the thing, because everything's different. All my
Yeah,
days are different.
that's fair.
But I put grapes. I'll either do like black or red grapes, and I put it with rocket. Like I'll get a bag of rocket, open that in, put the grapes in, and that's great. You can take that to the movies as well. It's really good at, like, if you want something to eat, like,
I've done that before.
snacky
I've
sort.
done that before.
Or I'll
Yeah.
have that at my desk, because I'm also awful for eating at my desk. So I am a snacker when it comes to eating. It's just not a good habit. I don't recommend it necessarily, but things like that. So things where I can just have, and it'll last because it doesn't go brown like for a few hours if I just have it on my desk. Actually, I've got one.
Mm.
I actually have it here. So this is my bowl, which I love. I got in Austria when I went to, well, it was supposed to be the Austrian Christmas fruit festival. Anyway, so there are my grapes and rocket. There they are.
Oh, okay.
That's for later.
Mm.
I'll eat those later. Yeah,
So
I went.
you're mainly just doing fruits and smoothies sort of throughout the day, and sometimes like a nut bar.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Okay.
Yeah. And then dinner, like the big salad, um, I guess. But sometimes I like eating that at lunchtime. If I've got time to sit down and eat a big salad and I can chew it,
Hmm. Hmm.
time to chew, then I will have that earlier in the day. I'm not someone who's like, don't I like having greens at the beginning and all through the day. So I'm quite keen on my greens.
Fair.
Like I like having fruit and greens together. That's one example of how I do it. Green grapes and celery is another version of that I really like.
Mm.
Um, Chopping up just like something really simple, like chopped mangoes and put it in with a bowl of lettuce. Like that's just great.
Mhm.
And it doesn't need anything else. It doesn't need any dressings. So um yeah, so my go-to big salad is like lettuce, and then what do I put on it? I put sweet corn, I put cucumber, tomatoes, or maybe pomegranate seeds. Um, I do have some little sort of slightly borderline things like olives and kimchi. I
Kimchi
like,
for the savory.
and sometimes I do have a little bit of the plain calcium set tofu. I quite like that.
Hmm.
Mushrooms I'll put on. Um, Jackfruit, not all of these things together. Like these are the sorts of things I might put on like in different combinations.
Fair.
Um, yeah, I buy the frozen jackfruit, and then if you defrost it and cut it into strips, that's really nice. Like, so I might do a sweeter sort of salad. It will be like the jackfruit, pomegranate seeds, um, sweet corn, avocado. Yeah, that's one I quite like. Might put some sprouts on there as well. And then my go-to dressing is a fat-free dressing I've been having for years, and it's lemon juice, miso, like a teaspoon, half a teaspoon of miso, and agave syrup. Now, I know not everyone likes that, says it's too processed or whatever, but for me,
Oh.
I felt like I didn't want to have the nut. I'm trying to keep my fat down, and I haven't cracked my avocado addiction yet. So
Mm.
like I will have like the raw tahini, the raw, nut butters and things a little bit, but try not to have too much.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so that's my go-to dressing. And yeah, or I might do the sort of then the tofu, the mushrooms, like maybe a bit of like nori or something on there. And I really like the nori rolls. So I do that's a meal that I make quite often for myself if I like have a bit of salad and I make the sort of sushi rolls. Um, yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So very detailed. Amazing. You
But
brought
I'm
you
also quite boring, actually. I think because I'm very
yeah.
repetitive in my own life.
Like eat the
I
same
don't,
meals over and over
or
again. Sort of thing.
I eat the same thing. I'm more than happy to eat more or less the same thing, maybe slight variations, but nothing too complicated. Yeah, I like making kale chips in the dehydrator, but like I've just started branching out into cinnamon, like the banana cinnamon roly things or whatever,
Oh,
making some of those.
I've seen those and they look nice.
They're really nice, yeah. But with the like date, I
Date
made
sauce in the
I made
center.
some recently with like a date carob cinnamon sort of
Mm.
saucy thing. Yeah, that's really nice. But I'm not huge on the dehydrator. It's a bit fiddly. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you have to wash. It's the washing it afterwards that annoys me. So I really eat quite simple stuff when I'm by myself. I do just
Mm.
chop up some fruit, put it in a bowl, eat it. Like,
I
yeah,
was
I
gonna
have my
ask
mono
you,
meals.
do you think everybody in the world can do a fruit-based raw food lifestyle?
It's a really interesting question.
Mm.
Um,
Because some people may say, oh, like I tried it, it didn't work for me, etc. So I just want to get your take on that.
well, the philosopher in me will say it depends on your definition of the word can.
Mhm.
Can every human being eat this way? Yes, they can, because this is our natural way of eating. This is the way our human bodies evolved. Um, and so physiologically, I would say yes. Socially, I would say no, probably not. Well, definitely not. Not the way our society is today. I still think it is a very privileged place to be able to eat this way. And it is mostly done by people who are adult, mostly adult, solvent, and independent of independent means and sane mind. And it's not people who are in residential homes. It's not people with learning disabilities. It's mostly not children. It's nobody in any kind of institution, whether that be a school, a prison, you know, hospital. None of those people who are in some way incarcerated in any of our social institutions can do this diet because they don't have the freedom to be able to do it. People on a low income, it's possible, but you have to be fairly dedicated. It is more expensive. I think that we have to be honest about that. Certainly, if you want to do it in a way that's nice, pleasant, entertaining, fun, nice, want to have the tropical fruit, you want to have the treats and stuff. It costs money. It does. So I think um, I'm definitely interested in finding ways to make it more cheaper, to make it more accessible, and to increase awareness, and that will make it more possible for more people. And that's a big part of what I'm about. But at the moment, no, I would say definitely not. Elderly people, anyone. I think the other thing that I've come across is people who maybe are already quite ill and maybe don't have the social support. And it does take preparation. You have to be able to actually make the stuff. There's a lot of chopping. Even yes, you can probably say, okay, you could just sit there with your box of bananas, and you can do that. But whether everybody would want to do that on a long-term basis, and whether on a long-term basis that will give the nutrient variety and range that might give us our best nutritional experience, I would say probably not. So um and then of course there is the issue of we're not actually wild. We're not eating wild food that's grown in the wild, like organically in naturally rich soil. We're eating food from Tesco's that's grown in a water hydroponic greenhouse or something, and it's only got the nutrients in it that the growers put in it, so it just doesn't have like, unless you eat. I mean, I tend to eat a mixture, right? So I don't eat all organic, but I do try to get as much as I can, um, and what I can afford and things, So I yeah, it's a bit of different types of stuff that I have, but I think you really, really notice the difference. And so, dare I stick my neck out on the B12 subject? We don't really know scientifically. I think it's still something we don't really understand. And um,
It says you raised your hand.
I appear to have just raised my hand. I didn't touch the laptop at all. So
You're
sorry,
okay.
I'll put it down. There we go.
I don't even know how to.
So, um, so I'm a pediatrician, I'm a children's doctor. One of the things I'm interested in is obviously child health, and how does this diet affect children and young people,
Mhm.
and parents who might want to raise their children raw. um Unfortunately, the situation at the moment, we do have a fairly prominent vegan doctor who has written a book that says that raw diets kill children. That is a reality of the world that we live in. I have been involved in maybe two or three, I think, cases of families where there have been questions around, is this a safeguarding issue? Should the children be taken into care? People still asking those questions.
Mhm.
Like they think, and it's not even that long ago. Belgium, Italy passed a law saying that even just raising your child vegan was a, a criminal offence punishable by imprisonment. And we're talking within the last decade. I'm not sure what the latest on that is, but and Belgium as well.
Mhm.
Can't quite remember the outcome of Belgium, but anyway, and there are plenty of people in our, although that's not the case in the UK, it's not a criminal offence to raise your children vegan, and we're only talking vegan, we're not talking raw vegan. There are still lots of people who maybe think it should be, or who are very, very opposed. I want to try and say the word vehemently, and I can never say the word vehemently opposed to raising children as vegans. Now,
Mhm.
that is starting to change.
Yeah, what are your
But
thoughts? What are
I've
your
in
thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? In the whole.
so I think that the early um studies, if you look at the science, there was the mistake that was made was that people looked at very low quality studies. They're very low in what we call the hierarchy of evidence, which are case studies of vegan children who were unwell, or who, and this is something I talk about in my book. I talk quite extensively about B12 in my book, and about the scientific studies that haven't been done, because there's lots of unanswered questions. But I think the big mistake there was looking at individual case studies, and people drew very sweeping conclusions from individual case studies, and they included uh, the umbrella of vegan. Like, vegan is an umbrella term, right? It encompasses a huge dietary range, actually. um and so they also, people attribute things to somebody being vegan if they, like, say a child comes to me and they've got X illness, right, and they're not vegan, they're just eating a regular diet, right. I wouldn't say automatically your illness is because you're eating too many crisps or chips or sausages or beans or chicken nuggets, right. I mean, I might think that in the back of my head sometimes, but I wouldn't write a scientific paper saying, here's a case study of this child who's got this problem, and it's because of their diet, like it's because they're eating too much meat. You never see that. Nobody ever writes a paper saying that this child has this problem because they're on a meat-based diet. But you see it all the time. Every time a vegan child goes to the doctor and they've got a problem, then you see people going, I'm writing a case study about this vegan child who's got this illness because of their vegan diet, and they draw these sweeping conclusions.
Mm.
So when you start looking at that, and you're not looking at, what other things are maybe going on in that child's life, like, or in the family or whatever. So I now think, although with a lot of effort and awareness raising in the vegan community, we now have much more awareness that children can be raised vegan, and that can be safe and it can be healthy and so on. We don't have that about raw. Like, we're like 10 years behind.
Mm.
I think it'll come. I think it will come as more people understand what a healthy raw vegan diet looks like. And we move away from this idea of it being this massively restrictive thing.
Mhm.
Everybody's wasting away and dying of nutrient deficiencies and like, you know, um, incredibly skinny and, all of that, those kind of prejudices. And we move away from that. We start to see more people doing it and thriving and getting their calories, and that it can be abundant and it can be nutritionally adequate. Then we can start to say, well, yes, of course, it's absolutely fine for children as well. But there are some things to think about in terms of um, maybe, where I was talking about the eating lots of greens that don't have any calories in them.
Mhm.
So you're not getting any calories. If that's the raw diet that you're feeding your child,
Mhm.
and they're growing and they're not getting enough calories, like, we can make that mistake as adults. We just lose a bit of weight. But if you give it to a growing, developing child and you've got that wrong as a parent, and you're underfeeding them calories, or you are somehow restricting their access to food, not necessarily knowingly or voluntarily,
Mm.
but actually you're just not understanding how much they need to eat and what they need to eat to get the calories that they need in order to grow and develop, you know, probably raw children are smaller as well, but that may be absolutely fine because um, maybe the meat eating children are, and the dairy consuming children and the processed food consuming children are actually too big. And I don't mean that in a weight sense. I actually mean like height and like just generally.
Mhm.
We are, if you go to an old house, like from hundreds of years ago, like the doors are really small, aren't they? Because we've actually grown in stature over like that period of time, like on average as a population. And that's probably nutritional.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't know that. Mm.
yeah, so like people were really short and they're not short anymore. but but it it may be, from what I've seen of the raw vegan children that I've seen, that they're quite compact, like they're really healthy, they've got loads of energy, but they are actually a bit shorter, um, and their bodies are sort of a bit more, yeah, like, I don't know, like they probably should be, like lean and
Like
muscly and
leaner,
loads
yeah.
of
Okay.
energy and running
Mm.
around, but like uh, more like we might be if we were actually in the wild.
Fair.
That's probably what our bodies are supposed to be like.
Okay.
So
I was
yeah,
gonna
not
ask
sitting
you
all
as
day on a
well.
computer.
I was gonna ask you as well. What would you say are the common mistakes people make whenever they come onto a fruit-based raw food lifestyle?
Well, that one of under eating calories is the
Yeah,
big one, isn't
the
it?
main one. Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, and I think that's a temporary thing. It's to do with like if you have been eating very calorie dense food
Mhm.
and things that you can eat really quickly, like sandwiches, like the sandwiches, like everyone at work lunch is like wolfing down a sandwich while you're doing a million other things at once, you know, and then suddenly to get the equivalent like number of calories, you're faced with a big bowl of like fruit and greens or something, and you've got to take half an hour to actually chew it, and your stomach doesn't have the capacity because you're not used to the volume. You'll stop eating that too soon. You won't eat the full amount, or if you still have the same size plate and you just fill that plate, and it used to be, a normal size plate, well, you've got to have a really big plate because you've got to understand that the volume is different. Um, so I think that people can come onto the diet and they can lose weight, and they think if they need to lose weight, they think that's amazing. They're like, oh, I did the raw diet and I lost weight. Well, it actually isn't. Like, it is for them, but they don't know why that happened. They just think, oh, I did raw for so long and I lost weight, and that's great, isn't it? But actually, really, a raw diet that is sustainable in the long term, you need to be able to not lose weight or even
But
to
not
build
lose too
muscle.
much weight. Yeah, as in like not like
And
go
children
go
need to
into the
gain
deep
weight.
end. Mm.
Yeah, so not everyone needs to lose weight. Children need to gain weight in physical mass, like growing bigger. Um, and yeah, so once you're at your optimum weight, you need to keep it like that. So you've got to still eat the calories, and then you've got to fuel whatever exercise you're doing as well. Um, so it's only a very short term benefit. And you've either got to make that transition then to I'm now at the weight that I want to be, and I've got to increase my number of calories that I'm eating. And now you've got to understand like how to do that and what that looks like, or you're going to fall off and end up eating the cooked food. Because if you don't start eating more fruit, then you're going to eat more cooked food. So you'll probably lose weight if you eat a lot of greens, not too much fruit, and do it that way.
Yeah. Hmm.
And you're still not really like you haven't really got the stomach capacity. So you'll probably lose weight by accident almost for a period of time. Me, I don't lose weight on a raw food diet. Like I'm quite a good raw chef. I love my food, and my body always, if I don't think about it, I will eat exactly the right number of calories to keep my weight exactly the same. Like for most of my adult life, my weight has been absolutely stable without me thinking anything about it at all. Our bodies are really clever and they can do that. We have that built-in mechanism. If we're eating not natural food, not processed food, not food loaded with sugar and fat that shouldn't be there, our bodies we don't need to do chronometer and do all this stuff because we just naturally have that inbuilt mechanism. And unless, maybe you've got some genetic problem or something, but most people, healthy people, they can just get on and do it. But what you do have to have is a sort of mindset that says I'm not restricting and I'm eating what I need, like I'm eating when I'm hungry and then I'm stopping when I'm full, and I'm not restricting and I've got a range of different things to choose from. And I think because a lot of us have grown up in this culture where our relationship with food is so tortured because we're surrounded by all this processed addictive crap. And then, so we grow up learning how to do this, like trying to put restrictions on ourselves, trying to control our eating, trying to manage our portion sizes, trying to, and we're in a battle with our food. Like most people in our society are in a battle with food all the time. Those people in our society who maintain a normal weight are doing it because they are putting some kind of cognitive limit on what they're eating. Like somehow they are controlling. Like I've heard people in the nutritional science field say, I don't understand why everybody in the world isn't completely massive,
Hmm.
massively overweight when we're surrounded by all of this addictive junk food.
Hmm.
And I think the answer is that, people do, because we do have, most people have an awareness that, it's not ideal, is it? So it's like we restrict in different ways, but our whole mentality is about restriction. And it's a really big change to go from that mentality of restriction, trying to, like control your portion sizes. Then that's a really, really big shift to go, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not restricting anymore. I'm going to have abundance and I'm going to eat everything that I want to. But it only works when you're eating natural food because our inner system for controlling that calorie, in the calorie intake, it only works when we're eating the food that we would be eating naturally in the wild. And as soon as you put in all that dense kind of, the oils, the fats, the sugar, and all of that addictive, dense calorie rich junk food,
Hmm.
it just it that system doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And then we all gain weight. So um you know if we don't, for whatever reason, have that control, then we just do that. Pretty much everybody does that.
Yeah. So
Like
why?
that's
So
that's just how the whole human body works.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that whenever we grow up in a society where a lot of people are restricting just based on the highly processed, highly palatable sort of food that's available to them. And then whenever they come on a fruit-based diet or like a fruit-based high raw diet, they have to switch that over to more of an
Yeah.
abundance. And the foods such as like fruits and leafy greens, they can be at an abundance without, getting too sort of overweight or obese or anything like that. Whereas, yeah,
You're never gonna get overweight eating fruit and leafy greens. Like that
some
just
people
it's
believe
never
that.
gonna happen.
Some people
Huh?
believe that. Some people
It's
are
never gonna
afraid of
happen.
that.
No, no, it's never gonna happen. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah. So I was going to say about cooked food. Like obviously I've been talking about like junk food and processed foods and ultra processed foods. There's a lot out there about ultra processed foods at the moment. But actually cooked food also has that effect. So when you heat food, when you cook it, um, it becomes easier to eat. And some people would argue we learn how to cook food. You can eat much more calories in a much shorter space of time with cooked food.
Mm,
Yeah, it's softer. It's just you don't have to chew it so much. You can just like, bam, it's gone, isn't it? It's gone
mm,
in.
mm,
Um, and perhaps it does some of the, I don't know, breaking down work as well
mm.
that um helps to get more calories in a short space of time. And so one argument that I have heard is that freed up human beings to have more time to do other things like make major scientific breakthroughs and,
Yeah.
become
So
more civilized or whatever. Okay. Not sure I totally agree with that one, but I suppose the thing to remember is that even if you're eating what one might describe as a healthy, cooked, whole food, plant-based diet, and then you shift to raw, that you still have a degree of that change that you need to make. It's not just like if you're eating loads of like chocolate and biscuits and crisps and
yeah,
chips and donuts
no,
or whatever,
100%.
you
100%.
know. Um,
So wait, so one of the
so,
things you were saying as a common mistake is that people undereat and that they need to overcome that with like eating more voluminous, fruits and vegetables. What would you say, why would you say someone should maybe avoid doing the high fat things? What's the sort of issues around eating a high fat raw diet or high fat diet in general?
okay. So things that fat does to your body. Um, in the very short term, fat has an effect on the endothelial lining of your blood vessels. So the cells that line your blood vessels produce something called nitric oxide normally. And nitric oxide is a vasodilator. It makes the smooth muscle in the walls of the blood vessels relax and it opens your blood vessels up. When you have a high fat meal, it impairs nitric oxide production by the endothelial cells, which makes the blood vessels constrict and get really small and tight, and it reduces the blood flow to whatever tissue those blood vessels are supplying distally. So if it's your heart muscle, it's going to reduce the blood flow to your heart. If it's your brain, it's going to reduce the blood flow to your brain. And so that's a very short term thing, and that might partly explain why raw vegans tend to suggest that we should eat our fat later in the day if we're going to have nuts and seeds and things like as a dressing or an avocado with a salad in the evening, but not during the day because it actually impacts. And I think certainly people like Doug Graham, people who are in and yourself interested in athletic performance,
Mhm.
not that I'm not interested in, but I come from more from the scientific medical thing. But anyway, your athletic performance is better if you don't eat fat through the day. And that's on that very short term basis. Then we have the issue that fat is if you have too much, it gets deposited in the walls of the arteries. So like the blood vessels that supply like your heart and your brain and your genitalia and your kidneys and your feet, all of these things, like different problems can arise if you don't have enough blood going to those places. So that's what we call atherosclerosis. That's like the fatty deposits in the walls of the blood vessels, and then over time it sort of gets hardened and sclerosed, and like you start to get these fixed narrowings. And then so yeah, so what do I want to say? So that causes heart attacks, it causes strokes, it causes erectile dysfunction and impotence in men and women, by the way, because women get erections too. It causes something called peripheral vascular disease, also exacerbated by smoking, but it impairs the blood supply to your feet, legs and feet, and to your muscles in your legs.
It's a lot of
And
things. Yeah.
that's all like a lot of stuff, right? It's bad. It also can give you something called a triple A, or an abdominal aortic aneurysm, which is like where the big blood vessel in your tummy like blows up like a balloon that can burst. That's bad news if that happens. You're not very
And,
well at that
and for
point in
people
your
with
life.
diabetes as well.
So yeah, so the next thing is that the other thing that fat does when it's in your bloodstream is it affects the signaling pathway for insulin. So it builds up particularly in skeletal muscle cells, something called intramyocellular lipid, and it blocks the intracellular part of the signaling pathway. So when insulin normally, so you've got your cell, you've got your little kind of receptor on your cell, and then the insulin comes and fits onto the receptor on the cell, and it sends a little signal into the cell like that, yeah, saying, open up and let all the sugar in, let the glucose into the cell. Well, if that doesn't work properly, and it doesn't work so well if you've got a lot of lipid buildup inside your cells, then that you can't get the glucose into the cells, the glucose stays in the bloodstream. So then your blood glucose level rises, and then you get, that's a situation that we call insulin resistance, or it might be called pre-diabetes, or in type 2 diabetes you have high insulin resistance resulting in high blood glucose levels. And the solution to that problem is to reduce the amount of intramyocellular lipid by going on a low-fat plant-based diet, and then that will improve your signaling, reduce your insulin resistance, or increase your insulin sensitivity, and reduce your blood glucose levels. Yes, makes
Wow.
sense.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
that is not something that a lot of people know and understand about the diabetes situation, because still a lot of people feel that the thing you shouldn't eat is sugar. And what we need to understand is that actually what you shouldn't eat is fat and sugar at the same time, because actually glucose is our primary fuel source as human beings, but we're not supposed to eat it in the presence of a lot of fat. We shouldn't have that fat circulating around our system. And then when we don't, so we're eating low fat diet, we're eating the fruit sugar, our bodies can process that really easily, like really efficiently. It's like a E5 petrol in your car, but if you put petrol and diesel into your petrol car at the same time, it's not going to work very well. It won't like that very much. And that's the same situation, sort of, if you see what I mean. So I think also for type 1 diabetics, although eating a low fat diet doesn't cure type 1 diabetes if your pancreas isn't producing any insulin anymore, which is the problem in type 1 diabetes, but still some type 1 diabetics have some insulin production. There can still be like some in-betweeny sort of stages and phases, and people with different types of diabetes. Or if you're taking exogenous insulin, so you're injecting with insulin, but you might still want to reduce the amount of insulin you need. The amount of insulin you need is dependent on your insulin sensitivity. So the more sensitive you are to insulin, the less insulin you need to take as a type 1 diabetic to keep your blood sugar levels within a normal range. And the problem in diabetes is that what actually kills diabetics early, like causes premature death in diabetes, is atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. It's the same problem: the heart attacks, the strokes, the triple A's, and things like that. So it's needing to keep that level within that very kind of close range. Obviously, for diabetes, we've now got much better monitoring systems and like continuous glucose monitors and things, which are helping people to be able to do that. But also, eating a low fat diet is really helpful and contributes to maintaining that really tight blood glucose control.
Amazing. Amazing information. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you so much. So from what you're saying, one of the two best things you could do is make sure to eat enough and keep the diet relatively low in fat.
Yeah.
Those are the two primary things. Okay, no problem. I do have one more question for
Yeah.
you.
Go
Um, so you are hosting the Welsh Fruit Festival, the first ever Welsh Fruit Festival, right?
on. I am. Yay.
So what was the inspiration for that? And would you recommend people go to a fruit festival? Like, what are the sort of reasons why someone should attend a fruit festival?
Obviously, yes. Come to the Welsh Fruit Festival. You should
I'm gonna
definitely
be there.
come.
I'm
Like,
gonna be there.
obviously, yes. I think, for me, the experience of going to 7 fruit festivals so far in my life has been absolutely life-changing and transformative and has quite possibly saved my life. Possibly multiple times over, I don't know. But I think you asked me about three questions there. Now I've forgotten
Yeah,
what the first one was. So
yeah.
it's
So
is it
yeah,
why people should come, or how did I get into it, or uh,
yeah. So
remind me,
yeah,
recap for me.
so you're hosting the first ever Welsh Food Festival. So,
Yeah.
what are some of the reasons why someone should go to a fruit festival, and what made you take on this role of, hosting the fruit festival?
With the first question, because there's two questions with two very different answers there.
All right,
So
okay,
I'm going to
sure.
stick with the why might someone want to come
Yeah,
in the first instance.
yeah.
And I think there are a number of different groups of people that the festival caters for. So we have a sort of umbrella term or umbrella terms that we talk about, which is like low fat. I talk about low fat, high raw, plant based, or fruit based raw vegan, or low fat raw vegan, or 80-10-10. Lots of people who come to fruit festivals follow the Doug Graham's 80-10-10 sort of diet style. Um, but I think that is under that umbrella a range of different groups of people that have different um, motivations for being there and are at different stages. Perhaps it's more accurate to say are at different stages in the journey. So you've got your people who are really just starting out. They're just dipping their toe in the water. Maybe they've never even tried it, and they're like, oh, this is the first time you're ever going to try eating like this at the festival. You're not even going to do it the day before. You're going to, like, I don't know, have your big dinner the day before, and then you turn up and they rock up the next day, and it's just like, okay, dive in.
Mhm.
Um, and there's that group of people. There's people who are maybe just starting out. They've been trying it a little bit. They've been doing a bit on their own. They really want to come and meet other people and, just benefit from all of that great social interaction and other people's experiences, hear other people's experiences. Um, and so still quite early days and still in the process of transition. Then there's a group of people who I would describe as high raw, who maybe have been going along for quite a long time, but haven't ever decided to do it 100%, but they're still but they've actually maybe reached more of a settled place in their own diet where they are including like some like yourself talking about including things like potatoes and steamed veggies, and they've got a bit of a blend going on with some of the low fat cooked food in there, and but they also recognize the benefits of raw, and they're trying to keep their raw proportion high. And maybe those people like the idea of coming out for a week in the summer and eating 100% raw for a week, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they have any intention of going back to their life and being 100% raw forever. So I think that that's quite a large group of people actually, who are reasonably settled or comfortable, but just they want to have a little bit of a health kick, and they love eating the food, but maybe they don't intend to do it in the winter, or I don't know, whatever it is that is the reasons why people make that choice. And then you've got the group of people who are committed fruitarians, 100% raw vegans, and they are there and they are, like this is, and they want to, and those people, partly some of them are keen to help, support, genuinely want to help and support other people who are coming up, through the process, and will be maybe people who've started businesses, or they're social media influencers, or they want to run activities, they do talks, they do food demos, they're engaged on that sort of level, maybe they're in the planning circle, and they are really there as mentors and supporters for the the other people I just mentioned. But they are also a group of people that want to come on holiday and have a holiday with each other and meet other people who are, also, 100% raw, vegan, fruitarian, whatever, in their daily life, who they may never get to see because of geographical kind of spacings out around the globe, and just come together for that period of time and have a party and have a really good time, have some fun in the sun, eat some grapefruit, really, maybe have the tropical fruit and the fancy stuff that they might not always have, or they might not always be able to afford all of the time. So, learn a bit of, I don't know, maybe a bit more gourmet raw, some tips and tricks in the kitchen, and all that stuff as well. So that is also going on there as well. So there's quite a big range, and I hope we can cater for all of those people. Yeah. And I think that is for all the fruit festivals that I've been to. That is what I have observed. And when you get a really nice, when it works well as a community event, you get all the mixture of different ages, different people. Like, we're a completely non what's the word? Completely inclusive, not bound to any particular religion or spirituality or anything, like just welcoming of everybody's beliefs, and all ages, all ethnicities, all abilities, just everyone. It's just like, come all ye.
Yeah.
So, that is really the spirit of community, I think, and that is really special and precious. And for those of us, who are, like, for me, yeah, I'm not totally completely 100% raw, and over my last 11 years, I would say, it's been quite variable. And I don't know anybody else. Not only do I not know anybody else doing this diet in my daily life or in my environment at all, I don't even know anyone who thinks it's a good idea, or would like to, or is it vaguely interested in it at all, or who does anything other than look at me like a complete nutter when I talk about it, And as far as I'm aware, and I may be wrong, I'd love to be proved wrong, I'm still the only practicing medical doctor in the country, who in the UK, who is advocating for a fruit-based raw vegan diet. And I
That's
am still
crazy.
the only person in the city of Liverpool who is trying to eat a fruit-based raw vegan diet. I've never met another one. I've
Mm.
met people who are interested in raw in the kind of ways that, like they have a little green smoothie in the morning, and then, but they're mixing it up a bit, or they sort of, I've met that kind of, and I've met a little bit, like, people interested in kind of the gourmet raw type of stuff. But even that has been like
Mm.
tiny. Like, I went to a group where somebody set up a raw vegan Facebook group for Liverpool, and I went to one, this is like 10 years ago, and all I remember being given is some raw chocolate. Like, the raw chocolate got handed around the room,
Mm.
and that was very early in my journey, and it didn't tell me anything about how to be successfully healthy and raw vegan. Like, it was just like, okay, you can eat chocolate. And that's a very, very early raw mindset, is the one which says you can be raw and still eat cake, and you can be raw and still eat chocolate. Like, when I first went raw, the first thing that was most important to me was that I could still eat cake, and I made a raw vegan cheesecake, and I ate it, and I thought it was great. And then I never, like, I think I've made one since, ever, in a decade. But it was really important to me to know that I could. Early on, that was really important. Yeah. And then I left it behind quite quickly because it was just like, this is ridiculous. And this isn't really what the thing is about.
Mhm.
But I think there's still a lot of that around. There's a lot of raw blogs and things where it's like it's just all cake and chocolate, or trying to make raw versions of pizza or sandwiches or whatever, rather than just allowing the raw food to shine for its own right and what it is. So, I just sometimes I like to have a play in the kitchen, do something fancy, but most of what I eat is just really simple, like fresh, ripe, and your tastes change, so you just learn to love it.
Yeah.
If you tell someone who's out eating a pizza that they're going to love it, they won't believe you. Like, so that is the transition. They're not
Mhm.
going to go. And that's something else I've learned, is that I don't expect anyone who's eating a cooked food diet to be excited about my food, because they're not. Like, they won't, and they can't be, because they're addicted to cooked food. And so they're going to hate it if I try and serve up a raw vegan buffet or something. It's not giving them the kick that they need and that they're used to. So,
Yeah.
you've got to get that. There's quite a process of withdrawal as well, which is, in terms of the festival, something to be aware of for those people who come and launch themselves straight in like that. Because I did that in 2019, and I
Mm.
remember lying flat on the floor on my picnic blanket outside the marquee. Like, it was a marquee that had all the talks and things in it in those days. It was
Yeah.
all outdoors, and I lay on at I felt so awful. I was there as a volunteer in the kitchen, and I could not move. I was supposed to be doing like 6 hours of work in the I did do it, but I do remember this, like, just lying there on like the second day or something, and I had the worst headache because I did exactly what I described, which was like, I remember I drove there down the M6 with my like huge great jug of hot chocolate with like full of sugar, and I think I had a packet of Skittles. I actually remember the Skittles. Why? But rubbish. I was eating rubbish right up until I walked through the gate, and I literally just went bang. Like, the withdrawal was awful,
Oh my
because I was having a lot of sugar, a lot of caffeine. My headache was horrendous, and my energy, just like, I could not move. I couldn't have stood up if I wanted to. It was actually not. It's not even vaguely psychological. Total physical shutdown. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some online events for people who want to come to the festival. Like, we'll be doing them
Like a
weekly
transition almost.
before the
Yeah.
event, and we'll be talking about these things. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's, everyone's going to be able to like transition in advance.
Yeah.
Depends on your social circumstances and whatever. But at least people can start to try to maybe make a more gradual shift and include more raw food in the run up to turning up at the gate. Don't do what I did. It's
Yeah.
awful. Don't.
Because I was gonna say that I had been fruit based for many, many years, and after the UK Fruit Festival last year, I remember whenever I was like, it was ending, just thinking to myself, why did I wait so long to go to one of these? I was like, why did I wait so long to go to one of these? It's not common you're going to ever be able to be surrounded by people eating a fruit-based diet all in one space in a huge quantity. So it was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. Like, genuinely one of the best experiences I've
Yeah.
ever had in my
Yeah.
life. And after that, I told myself I will never let a single year go by without going to at least one of these. Never, ever, 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 ever.
Amazing.
So
Brilliant.
I'm
Yeah.
really excited for the Welsh Food Festival.
Right.
I think it's gonna be
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
So I was a bit like you, that I remember 2014
Yeah.
is a year I remember really well, because I really wanted to go to the fruit festival, and my partner at the time was really not happy about that
Mm.
situation. So we ended up camping in a field in Cornwall at the same time, and I just decided that I was going to do like what I called my fruit fest in spirit. And So I was like sitting there eating my like peaches, and I've got videos. It was just when I was just starting out
Yeah.
making like YouTube videos. Some of my earliest YouTube videos
Mm,
was me like in this tent in Cornwall, um, talking about, how I couldn't be there, but I really wanted to be there, and I was eating my peaches on the beach, stuff like that. So yeah, and then it was 2019 that I actually got there.
mm,
But yeah, I mean, I had small children, and I suppose what so we could have taken them maybe, but I had to go through a process of releasing that relationship, let's say.
mm,
And I think those sorts of things that come up are really hard. Um, it's not always, you know, food is related, isn't it, to love, I suppose. A lot of us equate feeding
mm,
people is an act of love.
mhm.
And when you stop eating the food that someone is feeding you out of their act of love, that is experienced as rejection. That's not uncommon.
Mm.
That's not an uncommon dynamic. And I've seen people go back to cooked food just in because they have to make a decision in their relationship.
Wow. Wow. Powerful. Powerful insight.
So
Powerful insight.
yes.
So, what made you want to start the Welsh Food Festival? And we'll close on
Well,
that
I
one.
set up U-Turn Health, which is my business, in February 2023. I guess I had been going to fruit festivals and other vegan events for a long time. Like I'd been finding that people were coming to me, help, asking for advice, asking for help. I was giving out a lot of like free coaching and stuff. And sorry, I'm just going to turn my heater off because I think I'm going like bright red, and it's because I've got a little heater down here and I'm absolutely boiling, even though it's freezing outside. It's
Mm.
January, right? I could sort of see that my face has gone like this. Um, what was I saying? Remind me what I was saying.
You were saying that people were coming to you for like help
Yes,
and
coaching. So I started it as a coaching business primarily. Like I wanted to kind of just be available for um for people who wanted to come and talk to me and needed help with their transition and stuff like that. Um, so and then I thought maybe I'd do some courses and things like that. So I set it all up, and it was a bit. I did a little bit of that, but kind of still working and still being a mum, so a little bit limited in the amount of like one-to-one time that I could uh, offer to people, I suppose. Um, and so then I guess we came to the festival last year now because we're 2026. So 2025 UK Fruit Fest, when Ronnie made an announcement that he wasn't going to run another fruit festival in 2026. He's done it for 12 years in a row. And bless him, I think Ronnie Smith is
homage,
absolutely an
homage to
incredible,
him.
amazing man. He is a pioneer, he is a visionary, and I can tell you that in the last 6 months since I made the commitment to run it this 2026, I have worked my socks off.
Mm.
It has been such a big job to get the whole thing together. I now fully appreciate and understand what goes on behind the scenes to make an event like this happen. And Ronnie did it for 12 years. He deserves a rest. I don't know what he's going to do in the future, what his plans are, where he's going to, how he's going to evolve. But it's been an absolute lifeline for me, and I think for a lot of other people as well. So when he made that announcement, there was quite a lot of emotion around, and people, I think, especially for those of us who live outside of London, um, because I know that there's been some more local events happening in London, but for those of us who are in what might be described as the regions, um, like I said, there is just really isn't the number of people. And actually, funnily enough, do you know what I did this? I'm gonna tell you about this because
Mhm.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I went on Googled it and went online and wrote this little list of this is the population, right, of London. That so after that happened, and there was a suggestion made that there should be more local events, like fruit lucks and people and local gatherings and things like that. And that has started to happen in London. It has not started to happen anywhere else. And I think there's a reason for that, which we need to understand. And that is on this little piece of paper. The population of London is 10 million people, depends where you draw the boundary, but approximately. The population of Liverpool, where I live, is 835,000. So less than 10% of the population of London. Um, Birmingham, 2.5 million, Manchester, 2.4 million, Leeds, Bradford, 1.65 million, Glasgow, 1.1 million, Cardiff, 400,000, right? So outside of London, much, much, much smaller populations of people. And actually, the number of people, the proportion of the population who are following a raw vegan diet is minuscule. So it's
Tiny.
tiny.
Yeah.
It's really tiny. I like to walk in hope and believe that that is going to change in the future. I think it will as we raise more awareness about this and more people come on board. But at the moment, the situation is it is absolutely tiny. We have, I think, about three. There's Texas, there's Woodstock, there's Michigan in the US, and the population of the US is 342 million, and that's supporting three fruit festivals. And yes, they're getting maybe 200 people coming to each of those. So I think, and we have to be realistic that you require a vastly, enormously huge population to support one small fruit festival at the moment. And for those people who live outside of the really big conurbations, actually getting local things together is it's just not easy. It's not going to happen overnight. It may happen eventually, but only as part of a community, a broader community building process. So the festival is a really important hub for that, and it allows people to come together once a year and meet each other in person. Lovely as it is to talk over Zoom, you know, it is nice to be in a field together.
Mhm.
Um, you know, that's nice, and people get to make those kind of connections that they can then go away and start to build on through the year. So I think I really want to have that understanding that the festival isn't just a one single event. Like for me, I've started also the fruity community on Mighty Networks, so that there's a kind of something rolling through the year, so people aren't just coming to the festival, yay, we have a great time, we feel amazing, we go home back to our normal lives, then bam, we feel we've got to deal with whatever we've got to deal with no support, nothing there, no community, and we just go back to our old habits because it's actually quite hard to perhaps do by ourselves. So I think it's really important that we have that community building process and year-round kind of connection. Hopefully more local things will start to happen, but it's going to take time. It's going to take time and attention as well. People having the intention, paying attention and having the intention to build that community moving forwards.
Mm. Okay, well, I really appreciate that you've taken the torch and really taken the initiative to set this up. I'm incredibly excited to go because for me, whenever I went to the UK Fruit Festival, I was already sort of doing my whole like fruits and greens, Arnold Ehret style. And then after being surrounded by people who have been doing like a raw food diet for like 20 years, 10 years longer, it made me go the distance. And then I went three and a half months in a row on fruits and greens because it just felt so normal to do that.
Yeah,
So really, really
amazing.
grateful that you are doing this. Let me know if you need help with anything. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on
I
on.
may just take you up on that, so watch this space. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, thank you, and thank you for everything that you do as well, because you're like really working hard to put it out there, and I see all your stuff coming out on social media. I think I'm always like pressing the little heart button.
Thank
It's
you.
really great. We need more and more people talking about this because it is so powerful, and I just think like yeah, from the whole range of health benefits,
Mm.
and also the athletic performance benefits as well, just like, and the mental health benefits that people get from it. It's just life changing. It really is completely transformative. And the more that we get people who understand that and start talking about it, it's just going to have a really, really big and powerful effect. So keep doing what you're doing, and
Amazing, amazing.
I'll see you at the festival.